So I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to speak to you today. This isn't a talk that I have given anywhere else, and it's a blend, an artisanal blend of some talks that I have given in the past. So to give, if you don't know who I am, which you probably don't, you're probably thinking, who the hell is she? I don't work for any big tech orgs. I do a lot of work on the consumer privacy side, volunteer-wise. I work with a lot of at-risk groups, so domestic abuse survivors, sex workers, people like that who may need some security awareness that takes into consideration their particular risk scenarios, and that isn't something that information security as a whole is terribly good at dealing with. I'm also a survivor of intimate partner abuse, so I have that perspective. So some of the talk is going to talk about those kind of issues around intimate partner abuse. There won't be anything, any kind of graphic slides or anything like that, or graphic descriptions, but just to let you know if that is something. Also, I'm a woman with fairly strong opinions, so if that upsets any of you, now's the time to leave. I've got a QR code there with a link to my blog, Trash Panda. It's what we call raccoons in America, where I very sadly had to come back from last year, and I still miss it. So if anybody happens to go to America a lot and can bring me some stuff from Target, I would love that. Or if you want to hire me just to go to America and just do nothing, and I'll just go to Target occasionally, that would be quite nice as well. I can work remote. And one of the things as well, I kind of wanted to blend this in, because I don't think we talk about security awareness in the right way. I think we need to improve it, and I think we need to move it towards harm reduction. Harm reduction, I mean that by, what I mean by that is, are we looking after people who are at risk? So, you know, from my perspective of a survivor, when you have to leave and you have to restart again, are these other processes we have, particularly in customer-facing roles, when we deal with secure things such as anti-fraud, customer service. We talk about customer service being the weakest link and all that kind of thing, and people tend to go on about and attack customer service reps, and I'll come to that. I think we need to completely kind of shift our paradigm, if you like, about what we're talking about when we talk about security awareness. So what I hope you'll get from this talk by the end of it is, I've got 45 minutes basically to save the world. I'd like us to know where I think, in my opinion, security awareness is going wrong, and how we can kind of work towards making that better and build in some harm reduction, which is really important for all of us, really. So hopefully. And I think the first thing we really need to look at is privacy. We all assume when we're talking about security awareness and doing all those lovely PowerPoint things you have to click through, and he's talking about vish, smish, fish and all this language and malware and all the rest of it. We assume that people are coming from the same point of view, right? But we're not. The very first thing I ever published on an information security platform, and by the way, I'm not, a technical person. I don't work for a big tech org, so I'm quite an easy target for all those lovely people on the internet. But I published something on an information security platform, which I won't name, and I mentioned about this. I said this, basically, and I said the problem with our established practice is that we share passwords, and we think that's normal. And so coercive control, stalkers, just fraud generally is quite easy to get past, even if you're not a stalker, if you're just a fraudster. Okay, if you're phoning into a company, it's quite easy to get around those because we just don't have the same practices. We think, actually, it's fairly normal to share passwords. And I had a load of people come on, they're security professionals, come on and tell me that that was wrong, that they share passwords with their girlfriends, with their significant others, and they can't tell me that I shouldn't be doing that, and that's completely normal. And I'm not saying, my point wasn't that they were wrong for doing that. My point was that it's the reason why we have half these issues is because we assume that what we want from privacy, what we say is private or secure, is what other people consider to be, private and secure. And, just like, wearing a seatbelt or smoking a real cigarette or being in a relationship with a Conservative Prime Minister, we all know that those are really, really inadvisable things that you should do. And if you do those, then risk's yours, right? But we don't have the same thing with privacy or with security. We just don't empower people. And I don't mean empower in a kind of yoga way. I mean it in a kind of fluffy way. I mean it, and this has been said in other talks already today, we don't let people make those choices. We don't educate them. And then that's where we have the problems. Okay, so what I want in privacy is very different to what my children think I should expect. And again, even with that, if I say, well, I like to go to the bathroom alone, I'll still have other parents say, oh, but I love it when they follow me and it's really nice, it's a bonding experience, okay? We still need, around whatever somebody's saying about privacy and security, we need people to say, actually, that's not right, that's not normal, okay? If you're choosing to go away from that, to deviate, fine, but you're doing that knowing your risk. And we're not doing that. Okay, I actually I added this, kind of just switched this around because this slide said something slightly different earlier, but I was talking to Brian Honan earlier and he said that basically we should talk about resilience more. And this is something that we do. I mean, I know I work in schools quite a bit. And when we're talking about, we talk about threat model a lot. And when you talk about threat, that makes people feel, especially when I work on the consumer side a lot, it makes people feel quite uneasy. So I think if we talk about risk scenarios, and if you talk about making people resilient, you're going to have more success. If you talk about security, if you talk about privacy, they're going to switch off, potentially. Okay, and also there's a lot of other language we use, and I will give you an example of this a little further along, because I worked for a company during a breach. In fact, they had the breach my first day, and I was hired to do their security awareness, and that was a really good ride, I can tell you. So, and I worked with their customer service team, and they just switched off. Because they were being told that it was their fault. And, words like pen test, malware, I don't know, all these things, they're just vulnerability. They mean nothing when people think they're being attacked and people think that it's their fault or, oh, I'm never going to get it. It was just these computer people telling me about stuff I need to do. And it's... So... this is something that I think we need to look at as well when we're looking at security and privacy and harm reduction, and particularly when we look at customer service and customer-facing teams. Most of us will have got one of these, or when you go online to chat, if it's not a bot, it will be, or even if it was a bot, it'll have a name and it'll be made up. But quite a lot of customer-facing roles involve giving people's real names. And this particular person, I've very badly blacked him out. I was going to put somebody else's face on, like Nicolas Cage or something, but I've anonymised this as best I can. But I went on because I thought maybe it's not his real name, because I actually find this quite horrible anyway. I hate this tracking stuff, because you can track these poor drivers all day and they can just stop to go for a restroom break and you're still tracking them. You can imagine the hassle they get and the targets that they're working towards. It must be a horrible job. And this was his real name. He's got a LinkedIn profile. I went everywhere. I did a whole load of research on him. And every time I get something like this, and you can try and do it too, not for any nefarious reasons, but just to horrify yourself, that then opens them up, doesn't it? To abuse, to harm, and things like that. And so how can we, especially when I was on this customer service team, we had this breach and they gave us a 3-line script we weren't allowed to deviate from when angry customers called in all these different languages. And they were everybody's very smart and could have learned more about security if they'd have been properly trained in awareness. But they were using their real names as well. So you've got an irate customer talking to a customer service rep, and that's opening us up, or them up, to getting loads more abuse, being followed home and all these things, because people they don't make the connection always between their home and their work. Good security awareness should make you do that. It should show you what risks are, what security is, make you think about privacy. And it should show you that the things that you're doing at work to protect yourself and the systems and the data at work and all the rest of it are also things that you can do at home. But if we are allowing this kind of thing to happen at work, then we're basically saying, well, who cares about privacy? Who cares about the fact that we're using your real name? I think it should be false names. I honestly think it should be a fake name. I don't need to know his real name. That could be, or his number or something. He's still traceable. They could make him be called Jack or something. I don't know. Because there's also, in my country at the moment, in England, it's, a lovely non-racist place as well. So you've got these people who are going to be opened up to all sorts of abuse because they've got a foreign-sounding name. It's possibly one of the most controversial slides I've ever put up. But like I said, when I put my stuff about intimate partner abuse, about coercive control up, and I thought long and hard before I published it. And it takes a lot when you're not, a technical person, when you're not working for a tech company. It takes a lot to post stuff. And you get these people who are working in technical roles. And I think you probably all know them. Just because you have learnt to code doesn't mean you're interested in security. When we had our breach, I say our breach, it wasn't anything to do with me, I joined the company. It wasn't my fault. But I'd already flagged up a few issues with them. I start there on the Monday, we have this breach. It took them 6 hours to mention it to me or anybody else in the team. And then when I went through it with them, and I said, well, how did this happen? Because we had to notify the entire client database, obviously under GDPR, that there had been an incident, as we were calling it, not a breach, but it was a breach. And we had people over the subsequent 2-3 weeks saying, but I deleted my account. Why am I getting this notification? And when I went into it, because I said, well, how come that's happening? And they said, oh, yeah, our delete account button, it went nowhere, it didn't do anything, you just pressed it. It just looked like it did something. Now, that was for a platform that was very recently created. These are senior front-end engineers on their LinkedIn profile or on the company Slack. Basically, they were kicking me off Slack chats every 5 minutes because I was saying, do you not think that we should have had a delete your account button a year ago when GDPR was about to be launched? Or just generally ethically as a thing when you're designing a platform, a service, a platform, should people not have the right to be forgotten, the right to delete their accounts when you're designing that? No, we just made the decision not to. So, and that happens everywhere. It's not every time I tell this story, and I won't say where it was or anything else on that, but every time I tell this story, somebody says, yeah, that happens at my place. Yeah, gosh, and everybody's got a similar story. Just because you are in these roles. Security for a lot of people is just a paycheck. It's just something they can make money out of. And we see this a lot with awareness. I worked in security awareness with some vendors for a while, and it's horrifying. There's just so much noise around it, and everybody wants to use the latest buzzwords, and quite a lot of them don't know anything about security at all. And you'll know that if you've ever had to sit through a security awareness thing that's been training that's been made by an outside vendor. Quite often, it's just been Googled and then pasted in. It doesn't really teach you anything, apart from the fact you might learn that there's some new term for some type of phishing, but that's about it. And I think when we're designing all these things, when we're talking about security, when we're talking about privacy, when we're talking about security awareness, we have to make sure that we're training people to understand, like I said, to understand that their home and their work those practices work the same, basically. You can still secure your home printer the way that you would not use admin if you've got the credentials for anything, the access to anything, right? We're looking up to people like Mark Zuckerberg as icons because they happen to run a platform. That doesn't mean he's a good person. That doesn't mean he has security and privacy top of his agenda every morning. It just means he happened to create something. So that's where we have to start. And I think the people who I was working with on that tech team, they weren't a security team. We didn't have anybody in security. We had a chief privacy officer who left, and who was complicit with that entire thing about the delete your account button not going anywhere. But nobody had ever really told them about, I don't think, had ever really trained them. They'd learned how to code, but they'd never really thought about ethics, about harm. And if we don't learn about ethics, and that's not just right and wrong, it's what's historically caused people to be harmed, which groups have historically been harmed, because they're still being harmed, they're still being hurt. How can I stop this? Am I complicit within something, within a system or a machine that's going to cause more? And being able to stand up to that. And also to say, I don't know. And I don't think much security training really involves people saying, I don't know. And I think that filters down to security awareness. Okay? So I'll leave you to think on that one. So I think that, and I'll come back to this in a second, but I think the communication gap is massive. We have people who, if you want to design a security awareness training, or if I'm working with schools or consumers or sex workers or anybody, and I mean, if you were doing that, or if you do that, I mean, where are the easy ways? Where are the easy places you can get good security awareness advice for consumers? Where can people go to in your organisation? It's very difficult. But if I want to know, is smoking bad for me? What's the speed limit on this particular type of road? Or how does a car engine work? I can go to really, I know there's so much information out there, and I'm supposed to know this, and I'm not shamed if I go to the doctor. I mean, there are bad garages and bad doctors, but, I'm expected to go and ask for help if I don't know. But even on security trainings, I notice there's just, I have friends who go on these massive SANS courses, and I'm not having a pop at SANS here, but I'm just saying, they get nearly their height in booklets, and then they have to go away after the end of the test, and they have to study again to take an exam. And I teach a lot of the time in schools, and I can't do that. I can't teach like that because I have to have measurable outcomes all the time. And I have to say, what did they learn at the end of that hour? Whereas, and I have to ask them questions, and if they don't know, that's okay. I'm supposed to be saying, you will fail, which I think Brian said. And a couple of the talks today have said this, you have to fail at things to learn, and we're not encouraging people to fail. And because ourselves, as in information security, as professional people who understand all that, we're not allowed to fail. We're not allowed to ask questions. You're stupid, whatever else. You don't get that kind of spirit of learning which we need. We desperately need that. Desperately need standards as well. So, the security, the customer service side of things, I'm really tired of information security people, big accounts, you'll know who I'm talking about, the kind of ones who call me uppity on their personal blogs. They often go for the experience of problem, and even though they're the leetiest hacker, they still can't seem to find a security or the CISO's email to advise them of a problem, and they want to go for these security awareness reps. But I say to people every time when they say, and I've got in the reference section, I've written some stuff on why guilt and shame doesn't work. And if you want to read about that, you can. I'm not going to go into it now. But I'll say to them, well, they say, oh, it works. Shame works. It works if I, shame the Virgin Media rep, or it works if I, go for this company, wherever it was, T-Mobile, a year or so ago that had the issue. Every company will have one, or has had one. It happens. That's security, right? We learn, and the attackers are getting more and more advanced. We know that. We know it's just a matter of time, or we just haven't noticed yet. And so I say to them, if you think shame works, fine. We'll talk about that later. But do you know your social media team? You work for this organisation, this big tech company. Do you follow your social media team? Do you know? So would you even know? You're posting all this stuff on this company's website and on their Twitter account. I mean, information security, a lot of people seem to think the world revolves around Twitter, and it doesn't. But do you know them? Do you even know who they are? Have you done the awareness training with them? Do they get the training? Or are they just like the team I was working with, 3 lines, end of conversation? Which doesn't do your company reputation any good. It doesn't do the customer service team any good either. And do you follow your organisation? So if there was an issue, would you know? Well, you're yelling about how nobody has any response time and you can't find the security at. Would you even know yourself if there was something that happened at your company? And who has the admin passwords for the social media accounts at your company? I mean, Twitter itself had Jack's account got hacked, didn't it? Something happened to it. We know it's something to do with a SIM card, I think. I don't know. Discord had to help them shut that down, and think another platform. It took them 31 minutes to shut their own CEO's account down, close it down, because nobody noticed or nobody could do anything. But everybody all scream and shout about some poor customer service rep who's paid, I don't know, £20,000, £15,000 a year, and who has those big screens flashing. This is the amount of calls you've got waiting, this is the amount of waiting time you've got. If you don't believe me, if you go down and have a look at those teams and see the pressure they're under, and then try and talk to them about breaches and things like that and blame them and all that kind of thing. It's you have to have these levels of communication, because like when the Apple FaceTime bug got phoned in, I think it got emailed or phoned in originally, it went into a customer service kind of silo, and they didn't know what to do with it. That's at Apple. And Apple are actually pretty good. Oh, I should start dancing. So Apple are great, but they still didn't have that communication link between incident response or security and customer service. And so when you have the staff have to press a button maybe on an email, I think this is a phishing, I think this is suspicious, okay, and it goes to somebody in IR or somewhere else. Yeah, at least somebody has the chance, even if they boot it. I mean, probably that will be kicked out anyway, because it'll be automated and they'll check it. But it at least should go somewhere so they have the chance to kind of catch that. But it didn't, it sat there for weeks, because nobody, even at Apple, had the link between customer service and any kind of incident response security team. So that's it. Are you training those teams? Are you empowering those people? Okay. And so they can't ask because they don't know what to ask for. Okay. And I think really, security awareness should be like CPE. We should get CPE for it. People should. Everybody should. We know security teams also need, security awareness training as well. Everybody should, but it should be tailored to those needs. That security awareness person, whoever they are, whether they're in-house or they're a vendor, should go to the manager of that team, who should have consulted with the team on their various needs, and it should be personalised. It shouldn't just be, click through and then do your quiz. What's a vish? What's a whale? How does malware spread? It should be something that's certified, that's created by people who understand security, who are interested in it, and who are motivated to make that individualized, differentiated, accessible, and all the rest. And it should start with how it all works, which is what quite a lot of people, even in security, are afraid to ask. I'm sure you're not, but there are people who have gaps in their knowledge, and I think because obviously it changes all the time. Security changes. I mean, I'm constantly learning stuff, and I'm not anywhere near like a super engineering tech role. So again, we need to be able to understand when we're doing security awareness, and the stuff that I do at a very basic level is I say, well, these are the CIA principles, and this is how a network if I go any further, sometimes I go, this is how networking works, and I often have to look all that up. I check. What's DNS? That kind of thing, because these are the kind of terms that you start. I mean, this is a deeper level, but people want to learn, and if you want to talk about making people interested and even bringing people into security, because, oh my goodness, we need people and there's skills gap and all the rest of it, but how are we going to get people switched on to this if we just kind of go, oh, well, it's a computer, don't touch it until, just call me, don't touch it. An iPad or a computer is significantly less complicated than your body or your car. You can force restart it. You can force restart your heart, but, you need some help, right? But we think people are scared, the public are scared of touching tech things because we've made them think that they're stupid. And we go online and we allow some of our biggest accounts to basically flame customer service reps or members of the public who make simple mistakes, even the mistakes that we ourselves would make, and it's really unfair. So this is the kind of thing I've used this in trainings that I've done, and this is, I mean, you can pay Julia, you can buy her stuff. She does provide some stuff for free for students. There's links that you can use on an honour system, but it's worth it. Something like $12 for a book, and she sells a lot of the stuff you just got to deal with no starch. I'm in no way affiliated. I just think that it's nice to recognise good work. This is exactly the kind of thing that I think security awareness needs to include. And I think quite a lot of people in security, every time I show people this, and they're a lot more technical than me, they've got all their OSCP and all the rest, they say, oh wow, this is amazing, it's really good, I wish I'd had this. But it's lovely, isn't it beautifully presented, and it's nice. I mean, you can go away and look at that. She's done so much stuff. She explains all these different things. And I just think we need to make things more accessible. Google, I haven't got the link, but I mean, you don't need it. Google do a Coursera course, and I think they offer it on their own. You can Google it anyway. They do a really nice course for aspiring cybersecurity professionals, or I think it's like an IT help desk course as well. If you want to prepare yourself for, it's aimed at people who want to prepare themselves for that course. But I've taken a lot of material from that, or I send people to it because it's really lovely and it explains so much. Moving on, harm reduction really, really matters. And it matters in the sense of, because we're not talking to people who work in customer-facing roles about security and privacy, and because we don't design things with that in mind, people get hurt. This comes from a app by Security First. I've got the link at the end of the presentation. And Rory Byrne, they're based, I think, actually, they've got an office out of Dublin. But they've made this as well. This is an app. It's called the Umbrella app. You can go on to Security First and it will download it for you. It's in the App Store as well. And it's really nice if you want to use that to train people around harm reduction. Okay, when we're thinking about how, because it looks at their own personal risk first, and you go through all these different things. So each of those little folders, and it goes down, there's more than that, has lessons and things to consider for, your security and safety, how you manage it. Are you travelling? What are your risks? It's aimed at journalists and activists, but it is so useful that I've used it, and I know quite a few other people are using it as well for just general security awareness, because it's so beautifully done. All the materials there, and they don't mind if you use that. I mean, credit them, but they don't mind. They just want it used. Okay. So my account was compromised because anti-fraud didn't. They have these procedures which are around protecting the business, not protecting the consumer. So I had a credit card which, that was part of how I escaped my ex. And I put quite a lot of stuff on there. And when I went paperless, and I said to them, when I set it up, in person I set it up as well. And I said, I really want no paper, nothing, no trace of this. Nothing must ever be seen at my home address about this card or this account. Okay, fine. I got one letter about a year before I left the States. I got one letter and I was straight on the phone. Absolutely, you've sent me paper. I never want anything else coming, or I'm closing my account. This is really vital. This is part of my plan to escape. And they said, absolutely no, ma'am. Because I said, I don't care what legal things you've got. You know that you mustn't send me anything to my home address. It could put me in really big danger. And this account, I'm booking flights on it and other things like that. And I managed to, that was fine, but about 3 months after I'd left and I was back in the UK, you can't, by the way, you can't forward mail from the US to Europe, which I didn't realise, but I wasn't worried about forwarding mail anyway, because everything was paperless and everything was fine, and I shut everything down. But they still sent a piece of paper, a letter statement, to my old address, which then got forwarded to my ex and his stalker mates, who'd really enjoyed stalking me all the way through and made my life absolute hell. So they opened the mail, which is a federal offence. Then they took a photo of it, which is second federal offence, and sent it to him. We're compiling our offences here, and I could have taken them to court and ruined them, but I just wanted it to be done. And I phoned my bank and said, look, this has happened. I really want everything shut down. What else have you sent? And they said they wanted to take me through some more security questions, which I could pass. But then there was a subsequent security question, which was about the account number. So I passed all the security questions, and I'm flagging up, this is my account, I've got a stalker, I've had to leave, I'm in an abusive situation. And they said, we just need, for one more question, we need to know the entire account number of the account that you were paying that statement from. And I didn't have that with me, because I kind of had to leave quite quickly. And because of that, I got completely logged out. And then to phone customer service as well, I then complained. I was on the kind of free, toll-free number, and they transferred me when I said I want to speak to a supervisor, because obviously white women do that really well, to a manager. And they transferred me to a number in the USA, which then meant my mobile number got cut off, because I was now on my UK-based mobile calling a US number. And then I had £200 worth of charges, and then my mobile provider cut me off. Can you imagine? I mean, all of this, it kind of assumes that you will have a fail-safe. They assumed that I had money, that I had somebody who I could stay with. I'm talking to them about a credit card, and they just said, we've frozen it. So they locked me out of it. Then I had to, and all of that, then I had to get it shut down. So when it closed, you can't close it virtually. You have to, you can't even go in person. It's really difficult, it's really convoluted. So they promised me they'd shut that account down. And about 3 weeks ago, I got loads of messages saying, hey, we've extended your credit limit on this account. Still active, still live. So it's just, everything that we do it assumes that people are living within the boundaries of what we expect and what we see as normal. Even their security questions were rubbish. If you're in a situation where you have somebody who has coercive control or who knows you, most of the people you live with or who have access to your documents wherever you keep them could probably get through the basic security questions if you've set them up in a normal way. If you need your, social security, your national insurance number, your passport number, your mother's maiden name, and your dog's birthday, they would know all of that. And for this particular credit card, they were asking for such really rubbish questions, the SSN and stuff like that, things that you couldn't lie about. It required more than just a ridiculous answer that only you would remember, what's your mother's maiden name, Mars or something. You couldn't put that in because it required an SSN or a national insurance number or whatever. So it's really important that we think about this, and because we're not designing around that, because we think everybody lives like us and has the same risks as us, or we don't have to care. You can't, to reduce harm, to understand risk scenarios, to understand security and work towards privacy and securing things, we have to make sure that we are, respecting that, aware of that, starting it from the ground up, and that we're also, like I've said, we're not using, the real drivers' real names or the customer service reps' real names when we're doing things, because that affects their privacy as well. And it sends out a big message, even if it's not overt. If they really have to think about it, and if you're doing really good security awareness right from the base, if you write down what is privacy, if I teach the kids, if I do a bit of citizenship with them or whatever else I'm asked to teach, I have to say, well, what is this? What does this mean to you? What does voting mean to you? What does, consent mean to you? And they have to write it down, then we have a discussion. But if you say to people, what does privacy mean to you? And if you're saying to this bunch of van drivers for DPD, what does privacy mean to you? They might not have even considered the fact that their real names are out there and the harm and the risk that might be there to them. Or they might have. But you won't know until you ask. And it won't get solved until you ask it, until you start thinking about that. And if you do start thinking about that, then maybe you should stop it. And also marketing. I've kind of lost the will to live a little bit with the amount of security awareness things that are just, people just hire event planners who just run, because, they can run a CTF, right? Because CTF is security awareness. It's not, okay? And we have to demand that the people who are training us, who are doing the awareness, who are, securing the systems that we all use, that they are trained right, that they are qualified, and they're interested in security and privacy, that is their main motivation, and they're constantly learning. Everybody in this room is here because they want to learn. I hope you're learning something in this, but we're all here because we're interested in moving forward and getting new ideas and talking to each other, and the conversations that you have in the corridors and things, they're so valuable. And I don't see that reflected in the security awareness noise. I just don't. I've sat in some incredibly powerful rooms with people who are paid more than I will ever be paid in my entire life. And I've had to explain to them, even though they're in a cybersecurity hub or they've got cyber in their title, I've had to explain to them what a YubiKey was. I've had to explain to them how to use email. And I expect to do that in a public sector role where I am sometimes, but I mean, wow. If you're the VP of security or something, you should really know what a YubiKey is. You should really know what MFA is. And I'm afraid a lot of people don't. So yeah, we need these nudges. And nudges are things like this. Yeah, they're things that make you behave in a way that is kind of fun, and you're like, oh, I'll do that. And you don't think about doing it. Yeah, I would totally run up those stairs, and I'm a lazy fat moose. Okay, so in security, I'm trying to get people away from using just the red line box, because we know we shut off to that. Do you accept the risk? Yes. Do you want to see the risky content? Absolutely. Okay. But if we make it kind of fun, I don't want it to be too fun because there is a serious side to it. But, we've had pop-up boxes come up for people. We've had charts on the wall. We've had things where people come into offices and just in the footsteps they're taking, there's a little thing that's saying, are you thinking about this? Are you thinking about the privacy of people? Are you thinking about, why are they asking this question? If somebody's ringing up and saying, hey, my wife can't come to the phone because she's, or my husband can't come to the phone because, they're just outside milking the cows, and can you just give me the access to their account? It should be these things. Is the person there? Can you speak to them? Yeah. And other things like that. If the anti-fraud had better questions, they might have helped me, because I was saying to them, I am a victim of abuse. I really need some help. This is really important. And somewhere, somehow, lots of things went wrong. So yeah, the nudges will remind us of what we want to do, because we forget what we want to do. Yeah, healthy me goes to the shop and buys loads of healthy snacks, and then hungry me at 8 p.m. really hates healthy me. But yeah, in the end, I'm kind of pleased. Okay, so these are what the nudges are for. Yeah, it's making sure that we put things within our systems to ask the people who are dealing with customers, or anybody, if they're answering the phone, if they're dealing with anything outside, or even if they're not actually, you need those. People are going to get calls, they're going to get, I don't want to talk about phishing and all the rest of it, but if they're going to have that kind of interaction where they might be able to access something and give somebody data or information or manipulate accounts or whatever else, they need to have nudges pop up. Are you sure this is the right person you're speaking to? Could they provide another form of identification? Have they done this? Have you checked this? Does this feel right? And they won't know if it feels right unless we've made them think about security and privacy. Okay. So yeah, the good questions and the good reflexes and the good training do save lives, and they save money, because ultimately we're not just talking about people's lives like me. If I'm an abuse survivor, I got out, I'm fine so far. Okay, but even if I die, I suppose it doesn't cost anybody any money. But if you talk to companies about how they can save money, how they can protect themselves, but how they're not. Because if that DPD driver, he'd be great. You could probably fish him, or you could probably, go after him. It's not just about harming him. It would be also about, trying to get information. And there's easy ways to do it, because these people don't realise. They really don't all the time. Thank you for listening. And these are some resources that I have, and there's also more on the blog if you're interested. But thank you very much for listening.